love, and longing. "It's okay, dear. No one's hurt. I promise you that," Mironoir assured the panicked child. Whatever Vernon had done there had been enough attention on it that the 6 youngest sorcerers-to-be had caught glimpses. They spoke of lightning and ice, of darkness and blood, of the screaming of their parents and families. When that news started to spread, like any good rumor, it had tripled in size by the 10-minute mark. After 20, a full quarter of the Barless and Harkle children were convinced that the entirety of Serbo outside the dark forest had been reduced to a blood-soaked wasteland. She's right. They're not hurt, scared, and a little sore, but no lasting injuries. Brinchar notes he had vanished for a short while and came back, not the best person to comfort panicking children. Thankfully, he has the sense to realize this and excuse himself. Whatever just happened, he clearly got a whiff of Orega and dealt with things in his usual manner. "Green Sea?" Eric's youth asks. "Probably near the edge, too, so they can outright see that the world is fine," Dale confirms. "How can it be fine? Blood everywhere, darkness, monsters." A child wails and Dale flinches. No one's happy and everyone wants their parents. Unfortunately, neither the Barless nor Harkle are in any shape to receive visitors, even if that was a proper option. There is a sudden sensation, a rumbling of intent that presses down like a physical weight. There is a sense of calm and relief. There is no words, but a sensation, akin to an ancient but strong hand on the shoulder, strange and old but comforting. The world is not dead. No one's badly hurt. Your families tried to fight again, and Vernon stopped them from killing each other. He tried to be nice about it, but they didn't stop until he had them all tired, scared, and sore. All of them walked away. All of them went home, but none of them are happy about fighting him, Baronis explains. Heck, he was even nice enough to make it rain so they were mostly clean by the time they got home. No one's dead or even badly hurt. If they don't do anything silly, they'll be perfectly fine in a day or two. Then where is he hung? Where is he if he's not doing something horrible? He's talking to the police. That's horrible. Could you be a little less obtuse and a little more cooperative? The officer demands. Sorry, I'm trying not to incriminate myself here. We have you on film vomiting a river of blood into unnatural darkness to the screams of an entire army of women. And you're worried about self-incrimination. Yes, he says, and the officer buries her face in her hands. To be completely fair, I'm willing to fess up to what I've done, but I don't want extra nonsense tacked onto it. Throw the book, sure, but only the relevant pages get to stick. I'm not letting you do anything else. You're a sorcerer. That doesn't make me above the law. Technically, no, there is no law that states that sorcerers get immunity. But no judge, jury, lord, or lady in their right mind will try to prosecute one. You're dangerous. Too dangerous to be bound by rules like that. Vernon's eyebrows crawl up before he gives himself a shake. I've been living among the Apuk for nearly a year, and still that surprises me. You gave warnings multiple times, and after every single escalation all but begged for them to leave. The only thing I could slightly ding you on is potential biohazard contamination or provocation laws. But even without knowledge of you being a sorcerer, few people are going to look at your little rant among blood-soaked women to keep attacking each other while deriding the very idea of it as an actual provocation. Not to mention, the blood we got back has changed. The rain was more than just washing them off. It was triggering it to turn into water. Yes, you didn't get all of it. But considering that after scanning it and scanning you, we can verify that it's your blood, this goes into very, very weird legal territory. The closest equivalent is urinating in public, but without the public indecency. It doesn't even count as littering, as the local wildlife, rodents especially, cleaned up everything we didn't get to first. Okay, and I'm still here because we need to know exactly what you did and why. For the record, you are not in trouble. You showed up unarmed to a potential slaughter and stopped it non-lethally. You didn't so much as ruin someone's lawn. Not to mention you had us contacted and warned. We have the whole mess from beginning to end on camera drone. Could I get a copy of that? If you're cooperative. Now, I need to know where you got the idea to work like that. You gave me a copy of some religious text on your communicator, which is all well and good. But combing through a holy book isn't something that's normally done on police time. Well, you need to understand that I'm one of the initial axiom researchers of humanity. I'm part of Nerd Squad, roughly 100 individuals with... Vernon taps the side of his head. A typical neurology. This often leads to obsession and atrophied social skills. The 100 of us off Earth are all obsessed with the concepts buried within the entertainment genres known as science fiction and fantasy. But with our previous limited understanding of the galaxy, this means that we were effectively obsessed with advanced technology and axiom techniques. Myself far more the latter than the former. Although I won't turn my nose up at studying a starship engine or force field generator, it's just if there's an odd or unique axiom effect nearby, I'll look at that first. I see, and this holy book, the Bible, has those intense axiom effects, despite your homeworld being deep in cruel space. Yes, it does. So my original curiosity, as well as the curiosity of other mythology researchers in the Nerd Squad, was whether or not these ancient miracles could be repeated. And if they were, the question on whether these myths were just myths or historical records came up. And your conclusion? I believe there was a time where the null was so thin around Earth that axiom was fully usable. But since we hadn't evolved with it, only a select few, remembered later as gods, heroes, and other larger-than-life figures could use it, Vernon says, before smiling. Whether it's natural phenomenon or divine intervention, I can't say, but historical records say any such thinness was not natural or detected by the greater galaxy, so I'm leaning towards the latter. Very well. So, you took inspirations from a religious text. We have a copy of our own, translated into galactic trade, and another in Cinder tongue. But I want your interpretation of the texts. The chosen people of God were trapped in slavery. One of their own was saved from a culling by their mother sending them upon a bed of reeds down a river. This child was found by the royal family of his own people's oppressors, but true evil is truly rare, and this woman took the child into her home and heart, naming him Moses. What does this have to do with the 10 plagues? Moses, later in life, became a prophet of God and returned to the people that raised him with a message of, "Let my people go." Each time it was denied, greater and more terrifying miracles were performed one after another to force the surrender of the pharaoh, the equivalent of a king or emperor in that place and time. The first miracle, and the first one I learned to replicate, was Moses casting his staff into the Nile River and turning its pure and life-giving waters into blood, which is what you ended with. I effectively went backwards through the plagues, changing them to avoid death as my goal there was to prevent murder, not cause it, Vernon says. And what does this God believe in? What is the goals of this deity? Benevolence, mostly. The 10 Commands come a little later. Basic rules by which to live. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Do not commit adultery. Honor thy mother, honor thy father. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Have no other gods before me, and... Vernon trails off before scrunching his eyes shut and pulling out a leather-bound book with a cross stamped on the front. Could you not brush up on your scripture in the middle of an interview? The mildly amused officer asks, and the book is closed with a snap and tucked back away. And thou shalt not kill? That must be hard to balance with being a sorcerer and soldier. It's one of the mistranslated words from the original language. There were 2 words for different kinds of killing. One was used in the original language, but the other was used in the translation. It's supposed to be, do not murder. Killing is the act of killing as a whole. Murder is unjustifiable killing. Killing to defend another, killing in battle, and killing to feed yourself are all perfectly fine. Wars happen and we're predators to boot. Killing is unfortunately a part of life. So you don't like killing? I don't like murder. I'm a soldier. I've killed to protect myself and others, sometimes messily. I have little regret for that. Any regret I do have is that I could have been quicker about it. I've also hunted for food and butchered the animal. That's killing too. But murder? No, I won't do it and I'll never like it. I suppose the ban on adultery is why you're so faithful. That, and there's nothing anyone could add to the relationship. My Miro Noir is already perfect. He gushes and she rolls her eyes. Romantics, she mutters in disgust. Back onto the proper topic. Is there a particular reason you decided to use such bombastic techniques against the Harcool and Barless families? There was a slight debate beforehand with the other sorcerers in that I don't have much of a reputation beyond being Miro Noir's adoring husband, which, while fine, did start me thinking on intimidation techniques. And I figured, why not use one proven and solid? 10 plagues, modified for certain, but effective. Are you trying to tell me that sorcerers get into competition for who can be the most terrifying being on Serbo? Not a competition, but we do poke fun at each other. Why? It's suicide. You need to understand. To a sorcerer, another sorcerer isn't all that scary. No more than you're frightened of your peers in this station. There's no mystique for me. I understand that my going to the dark forest without a whisper and the fire-drinking foliage might be terrifying to you, but I find it so comforting that I honestly take naps on the branches of those trees. I trust it so much I weave flower bracelets from the dark forest for my daughters. I suppose that makes sense. The dark forest isn't some terrifying, yawning abyss of doom and death as it seems to be for others. For a sorcerer, it's home, it's sanctuary and safety. And the other sorcerers, even if you know that they have enough blood on their hands to fill a lake, you don't see a monster, you see a person. Really? The city shaker is a well-meaning man who likes to keep his thoughts to himself. Quiet type, but earnest. The bone chewer is doing his best to live away from the pain of his past and live a life good enough for himself and his lost brother. His son, the Leviathan Lord, is relatively uncertain of himself as an Apuk, a sorcerer and a son, and as a typical teen, lashes out somewhat while trying to test the boundaries. The Dreadmoss is a laid-back sort who likes a good drink and moves slowly until he's completely ready. The Burnstone is eccentric in that he always breathes fire, but I can't tell if it's more psychological or an unending game. They're people. So again, back on topic. Your goal the entire time was to do what exactly? Stop the fighting and prevent murder. 3 sons from each family have made contact with the Dark Forest, which means, in a distant way, the Barlese and Harkle are under our protection as well, even from each other. I see, and the fact that all their children are in the custody of the forest. To be frank, with their numerous arrests and the fact that they are legally kidnapping their own children when they go to retrieve them, I'm surprised something like this wasn't tried before. I see. Now, I've questioned you a bit, but what of the forest? It's part of you. Can it answer questions? Sort of. It's part of me, I'm part of it, but there's so much more to consider. Having it speak directly is difficult. It's done so a couple of times, but it's hard for it to do. It doesn't think in a way that makes that easy. All right, but what's its plan? Why has it taken the children of 2 feuding families? It sees a cycle of pain that its newest sorcerers will be a part of eventually, so it's taking that generation out of the cycle. Unfortunately, part of the cycle is the endless hostility of the adults, whether the children are there or not. So I decided to get between them this time. If they keep fighting, will you do this again? I might have to. I'd rather not. While it's nice to know I can bring down biblical scale wrath, needing to is far from fun. Will other sorcerers get involved? Probably. A Pook or human? Both. More and more sorcerers are getting comfortable with us around. It's not slowing down. But thankfully, there aren't that many sorcerers. We're a dangerous and small-numbered lot, yes. Vernon agrees. How good is your contact with the forest? It can increase and decrease depending on my choice. I let it sense through my body and listen to its suggestions. But in the end, I make my own choices, and if I want it to look away, it doesn't have a choice but to avert its gaze. Does that make sense? Yes now. How are the children? The sorceress Harcool and Barless children saw glimpses of the fight and started a panic. My wife, several sorcerers, and a small battalion of battle princesses are there to comfort them. But for a bit, they were convinced the world outside had suffered some kind of apocalypse and they were now orphans. Ah, that's why you're talking so much. You're ashamed for scaring them and are stalling for time. Yes. So is a sorcerer feeling shame a human thing, or considering that every sorcerer alive has a living confessional in the form of the dark forest that doesn't judge and offers practical advice? Ah, okay. So it's not just that you feel guilty for frightening them, you want to avoid doing it again. Basically.